so earlier this morning, I shared... Hi guys! Welcome back to my channel. I'm Rose, a second-year med student in UERM. Earlier this morning, I shared some study tips to the incoming freshies in UERM, our batch 2024. So I asked permission from our Medicine Student Council if I could share those tips here on my channel for your perusal, for my subbies, for Rosebuds. And thankfully, they agreed and they gave me permission to do so. So, share ko lang dito. Time to unbox. Okay, so super sakto. Yay! I got my MEMS notes today. Actually, I just split open. Wow! Here, plug lang. Thank you, Doktora. And I get free bubble wrap. It's here! It's really here! I got my MEMS notes from Dr. Avenir today. Glimpse lang. It supposedly contains super high yield notes, tables, things to memorize for second year. Para siyang counterpart ng lansang notes sa first year. Pero hindi ako bumili ng lansang notes eh. I'm so happy! Howdy Freshiez! The Medicine Student Council of UERM invited me to give a talk about the study tips that I have discovered, used, and learned after 1 year in medical school. So without further ado, let's start. My first tip would be that trances will get you through desperate times. If same lecturers naman from the previous year from my batch, then you can check if may mga binago from our trances. If not, then sufficient naman yung mga trances namin. Nung first sem, ang gamit ko is trances from 23B. Tapos, pagdating ng second sem naman, ang gamit ko is 23A. Sorry sa mother section ko. 23C kasi, kailangan may alam ka na sa foundation in order to understand the trans. Psych graduate kasi ako, hindi ako masyadong magaling sa mga anatomy, physiology. So, mas na-appreciate ko if book-based yung trans. Yung section ko kasi, 23C, medyo lecture-based yung trans namin. I suggest you figure out which one works for you kasi iba-iba naman talaga tayo. Tip number 2 is find the reference material by the lecturer. Different lecturers have different perspectives on the topic, lalo na if they use different references. I suggest na after the lecture, tingnan nyo yung reference list nila kung anong books, and if there's a concept you don't understand, then go back to their reference and dun nyo basahin. Baka mas maintindihan nyo. Sometimes kasi, knowing what reference material the lecturer use would guide you on the outline they use in discussing the topic, and also would lead you to the must-knows. By now, sanayin nyo na marinig yung must-know kasi sa med, dun ka mabubuhay. Which brings me to tip number 3, which is you don't need to study the whole depth of the topic. Kailangan mo lang malaman yung mga must-knows in order for you to have a taas na score. Usually, mabubuhay ka na sa must-knows. You don't need to pressure yourself to know everything about the topic kasi baka masayang lang yung effort mo in the end. Minsan din, maganda na makita mo yung mga questionnaires na nandoon sa reference material that they use kasi lalabas doon yung mga importanteng details. Sometimes, yung must-know kasi is important in learning more about the topic. This is what they refer to as reverse learning. So, in reverse learning, you go through the question banks or the summaries first before you go deeper into the topic. Tip number 4 is to go through sample questionnaires or Samplex. And tip number 5 is to explore different review materials or summary pocket versions of the references to figure out which one works for you. Iba-iba kasi yun. So, yung mga review books that I am referring to are BRS and First Aid USMLE. Yung palang yung mga familiar ako. For biochemistry naman, I use Lippincott's Illustrated Reviews. Nandun yung mga summarized version ng metabolic pathways, and sometimes they are easier to understand. So that's what they refer to as reverse learning. Mas aalamin mo muna yung mga importante. So that when you go into the lengthy, more detailed part of the topic, mas magets mo na kung ano yung mga dapat intindihin. Tip number 6 is, memorization and comprehension are not mutually exclusive. Marami kang maririnig dyan, okay lang yan, mabubuhay ka sa memorization. Itong subject na to, okay to for comprehension lang. In med school, they work hand in hand. They complement each other. You have to understand what you're trying to memorize, and then later on, memorize what can help you understand future topics. Understand memorization, understand memorization. Yan ang magiging buhay mo sa med school. Tip number 6 naman is to use different retention strategies like using handwritten or digital flashcards, using apps like Anki or Quizlet, and sometimes singing what you need to understand or what you need to memorize may also help if you're musically inclined. And of course, the very famous mnemonics or abbreviation. It's better if you personalize yung mga mnemonics nyo para mas maalala nyo. Personally, I use the PEG word system. If you're visually imaginative or medyo creative, imaginein mo na may PEG, yung mga sipit sa laundry. In my mind, if there is a concept, I try to peg it with a different word. In psychology naman, pwede mo siyang ma-refer as word association. And I incorporate them into tables. Do this because I understand better if things are in order or things are grouped together. For example, in renal physiology, group ko siya according to the different segments when we were trying to discuss yung tubular process. Pag PCT, NA reabsorption. So, PCT, NA reabsorption. Other than yung NA reabsorption, meron din yung sa glucose transporter, diba? You have SGLT2 and 1. So, paano ko naalala na yung 2 is for the kidneys? SGLT2, PCT2, T2. So, SGLT2. So, dinidikit ko lang siya ganun. I imagine it, visual cues ko, and then, sa sounds din, they all work together sa akin. And yun, mas naalala ko, it works for me. Siguro, pag trinay nyo rin, if you get creative, baka mag-work din sa inyo. Tip number 7 is to use the active recall method. You don't have to wait until you finish a topic or a chapter before you quiz yourself. Dapat as you go into the chapter, kini-quiz mo na sarili mo. How I do it is, if I'm trying to read one chapter sa Burn and Levy, I use a lengthwise paper and then nire-write ko lahat ng concepts na importante. On the other hand, my friends use the active recall method. As they go into the ebook, nagba-blacken out sila ng parang importanteng concept or term. And then, habang nagbabasa siya ng ibang chapter, babalikan nila yun and they will try to recall what that term is. In this way kasi, when you use the active recall method, your mind is more active in processing information. Hindi lang siya stagnant na absorb. Mas nagagamit yung mind mo, mas active siya. Kaya siya active recall. Imagine mo, para ka nag-exercise. Feeling ko, marami na sa inyo gumagamit nito or marami sa inyo familiar sa technique na to is the Pomodoro technique. The Pomodoro technique, for those who don't know it yet, is working in blocks of 25 minutes with 5 minutes breaks in between. And once you complete 4 Pomodoros, kasi yung 25 minutes is 1 Pomodoro, 1 block, magbibigay ka naman ng longer rest time for yourself. As far as I remember, the concept behind the technique is that it makes your body refresh after studying for 25 minutes. And then, pag natapos mo naman yung 4 Pomodoros, longer yung break, mas naging reinforcing. That's in psychology, parang reward system mo yun. I don't strictly follow the Pomodoro technique. What I do is, may to-do list ako. Yun yung importante is that I still time myself so that may switch off pa rin yung brain na it's time to rest para hindi ka ma-burn out. And then tip number 9 is to listen to chill hop, lo-fi, or classical music as you are reviewing. Don't listen to songs that you can sing along kasi it would distract you from studying. Tip number 10 is to establish a routine until it becomes a habit. There is something we call the 21-90 rule. Sabi nila, it takes 21 days to build a habit and 90 days for it to become a permanent part of your routine. The underlying concept behind this is that be consistent. So, pagpasukan na, just make sure that you have a routine that you will follow para hindi ka magka wala-wala. I think what would help us survive online classes is yung pagiging organized natin. That is a key skill that we need to foster, we need to hone right now. Kasi kapag hindi ka masyadong organized as a student, medyo mahirap makisabay kasi mabilis ka matabunan kapag online classes. Para ka nag-aaral mag-isa. So, to end this talk, I guess I just want to share something that I have been doing that has gotten me through different parts of my life. I recently discovered there's a term for it pala, which is spaced repetition. It's reviewing materials at increasingly spaced intervals. Habang tumatagal, mas humahaba yung days in between you go back to it. For example, if nag-lecture kami today, syempre aaralin ko or babasahin ko yung notes ko later that night, mamayang gabi. And then, next time na babasahin ko siya is after 2 days. And then, kapag may quiz na kami next week, babasahin ko siya a few days before that quiz. So, habang tumatagal, mas humahaba yung times na babalikan. When we do this kasi, it gets stored in our long-term memory. Hindi lang siya sa working memory. Dapat meron kang spaced in between to study other topics naman para mas matagal siya, mas ma-store siya sa long-term memory mo. I think I gave 10 or 11 tips in total. Sana may natutunan kayo sa akin or sana natulungan ko kayo kahit papano. I'm an average student and siguro medyo hardworking na rin kasi kailangan natin as an average student. And I guess my parting message would be to just enjoy the process of learning in medical school. Sobrang fulfilling nitong pinasok natin. Kung hindi lang maraming pressure around us, iba't ibang issues, masaya ang med school. And I hope that you continue on with this journey. You finish this journey kasi naumpisahan nyo na. Kung kaya ko, kakayanin nyo rin. Okay, so that's it. I hope may mga nakuha kayong learnings, discoveries, may natutunan kayo from this vlog. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit like if nakatulong kayo. If not, then comment a feedback or whatever. And yun. As always, keep rising and good luck sa mga med school careers nyo, med school journeys nyo. I wish you the best and stay safe, stay at home, and study well. Enjoy the learning process. So, see you in the next one!